Hello everybody, this is Courtney with Fiber Fox Studios, and today what we're going to be working on is this pattern right here. We are going to get started with it in just a moment. I'm going to be working a new swatch, and I'm going to continue to do the crochet along with new swatches as I go forward. But if you follow my counts, all your different designs will work together as you mix them up and make them your own. So we're going to get started here real quick. I wanted to show you guys what your back is looking like and your sides. Got a lot of tails here, and I'm going to be doing a separate video to show you how I deal with those. But for those of you that are wondering, the back side of Mosaic Crochet looks like this. You end up with a striping effect, and you can tell if you're looking at your work where you might have your double crochets, the drop down double crochets, like right here in this section. That is where I have a lot of them all together. So you're going to work, your front side looks like your mosaic design. Your back side looks like a striped design. To me, it is just a double-sided design. One striped, one in the pretty mosaic. So we're going to get started with this pattern right here. And like I said, you can just follow along with me. You can add this onto your existing piece. The counts will match up so that it works out perfectly for you. And I'm going to get started by chaining 10. So for me, because I'm starting a new swatch, I will be working in a different color. I'm going to work my foundation chain and then my first 2 rows. If you're joining on to your next design onto an existing piece, you will be able to just go ahead and work when I get to my color A, the white portion for me, what I've been using. You're going to be starting there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who are new and going to be doing this as your first pattern, you're going to follow along right here and going forward. For those of you that are adding it, I'll go ahead and put on screen where you can fast forward to so you can skip this part. So all of these mosaic designs start with a chain of 10, multiples of 10, and then you will do 6 at the end. So just go ahead and start chaining in multiples of 10. And when you reach the desired length or width of your project, you will be able to stop there and add 6 on at the end. So you can go ahead and pause here and chain up 10, and then we're going to add 6 at the end, and I'll show you how to work your row 1. All right, so you're joining back up with me. You've got your project, your starting chain worked in your multiples of 10 plus 6 at the end. I have 36 stitches right now. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this very first stitch. So we're skipping that first stitch and coming right here into the second. And we're going to just work in the back loop only. So just going in that back loop, and we're going to do single crochets all the way down this row. So there's my first single crochet. I'm going to end up with 35 stitches at the end of the row. If you end up with an even number instead of an odd number, it's not the end of the world. You'll just have a little extra space on one side, but you're going to keep working all the way down your row into that back loop only, working 1 single crochet into the back loop only all the way down the row. So we'll meet back up when you have finished this row, and you will have an odd number of stitches if you're following along exactly with me. So you're here at the very end of your row, and I want to point something out because you're going to need to always make sure that in your very last stitch, you are doing a single crochet going under both loops. So a traditional single crochet will always be your final stitch in the row. And when we go ahead and go back up here to the beginning of this row, we're going to be starting with a single crochet and then continuing on down the row in our back loop only. And the way I bind off is I go ahead and I chain up 2, 1 and 2, and I clip my yarn. And I ran out, so I just switched over to a new color because I'm using scraps for this project. And it also helps you guys to see what I'm talking about here at the end of the row. Marks the end of the row really well. But I switched over to a different color that I was going to use a little further up. On camera, it's showing really stark contrast. In person, it's not quite as contrasting. It's not quite as much of a color change. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip my yarn and pull through that loop, and then I'm going to cinch down. So I just grab just above that last stitch and just push down. And that creates a little knot there at the end so my work doesn't come undone. So now we're going to move on to our next row, and we're still going to be working in our color B is what I'm calling it. It's going to be the background color, color A for me. This is what is my color A in my project, is the white yarn. I consider color B to be any of the other contrasting colors of yarn that you're using. You do want to have a contrast so you can have your shapes popping out in your work. You want to be able to see those. So I am going to work one more time. This will be our second row of back loop only single crochets, but it's going to be our last row that we're working in color before we start doing the mosaic pattern. So I'm going to come here to the very beginning of my row, and I'm going to identify that very first V, and I want to make sure that I get under that first V so that I'm in completely under the stitch, and I'm going to add a slip knot on my yarn with a slip knot onto my hook, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up that loop. Now I'm going to grab my working yarn and my tail, and I'm going to chain up 1, and then I'm going to go back down in the same exact stitch, and I'm going to grab my working yarn and pull up a loop. Now I'm going to grab my working yarn again and pull through all those loops that I have there on my hook, and try not to split your yarn. And so now that's how you're going to begin each and every single row. You're going to be doing a traditional single crochet in the very first stitch. So now for this row, just like the last one, we're going to go through working in the back loop only on the rest of our stitches all the way down to the end of the row. And when we get down to the very last stitch, we're going to be doing again the traditional single crochet working under both loops. And this time around, I'm working over my tail to kind of hide that so that I don't have tails at both ends. For this entire row, you're just going to go through working a back loop only single crochet all the way down the row. And then we'll be meeting back up to move on to our next row where we're actually going to begin doing our mosaic pattern. So you can go ahead and pause me here and work on down the rest of your row, doing a back loop only, going in that back loop only, doing a back loop only single crochet in each and every stitch. And then at the end of your row, you're going to do a traditional single crochet. And I'll be meeting back up with you at the end of the row just to make sure you get the hang of that single crochet, because it makes your stitches be very even there on the end. It gives you an even end to your row, and it makes it easier for putting on the border. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here. You guys do the same, and we'll meet back up at the end of the row. And we are here at the end of this row. This is the row 2 for you guys who are doing your starting up a new pattern with me. And we're just doing a traditional single crochet in that last stitch. Always do a traditional. I went under both loops and I've worked into that. Now I'm going to chain up 2, and I'm going to go ahead and clip my yarn. And now we will be able to move on to row 3, which begins the mosaic pattern. So now I'm going to be switching into the white color, which is color A for me. And I'm going to be using the same color all the way up as I do the mosaic. But you can always change color and just have a contrasting color and have it fade in any way that you want. So for us, we are going to be coming back over here to the start of row 2, making sure we get under both of those loops, because we're going to do our traditional single crochet here at the beginning of the row. And I have a slip knot ready, and I'm going to go ahead and slide that on my hook and tighten it down. And now I'm going to draw up that loop. Then I'm going to grab both my tail and working yarn and chain 1. Now I'm going to go, for me, I'm going to allow my tail to drop. I'm going to go back into that same exact stitch, grab a loop and pull up, and complete that first single crochet in that row. So now we're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets. So we're going to go in to that stitch, just in the back loop only, very next stitch, and we're going to do our back loop only single crochet. There's 1. Now we're going to do number 2. And now here we are, back loop only, number 3. And now we're going to be doing our first drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. So I'm going to wrap my yarn just like I would for any traditional double crochet. And I'm going to come and this is the very next stitch, and I'm just going to slide down, and there's a loop right there, and I'm going to turn my hook so I can grab up that loop. And that is where we're going to be grabbing our yarn again and pulling up a loop, not making tight. We don't want tight tension here. We don't want to pull that loop upward. We're just going to grab and pull through 2 and grab and pull through 2 and finish out a traditional run-of-the-mill double crochet. But for this entire pattern, we're going to call those our drop-down double crochets. So now what we're going to do is we are going to do 1 back loop, single crochet in the very next stitch. And to make sure we're going into that next stitch, you can always fold your work forward. And that stitch right there, it is going to be covered by the double crochet. So when it's in place, it covers that stitch, so we never want to work there. So you can always take a peek back there and make sure you're covering one stitch and moving into the very next one. So we're going to do 1 back loop only, single crochet. And now we're going to wrap again, and we're going to do another drop down double crochet. So here's the very next stitch, and when I slide my hook down, this little front loop down here is what we want to grab up. And we're going to go ahead and grab and pull up a loop, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. And we're just making sure we're not doing really tight tension. And now for here, the next step we're going to take, this is going to be the beginning of our repeat for the rest of the row. We're right here again. We're going to be doing 5 back loop only single crochets. So we're going to check that stitch right there. We want to make sure we get over here in this very next one. So we're going to do 5 back loop only single crochets. So there's my first. Here's my second. Here's my third. Back loop only single crochets. Just go in there in that back loop. Here's number 4. Here's number 5. Now we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook. And here's our very next stitch. We're just going to slide down to this previous row and grab up that little front loop. So let me make sure that you guys are seeing exactly what I'm doing here. Here's our next stitch. We're going right down here. This loop, 1 row down is what we want to grab up. So we're going to go ahead and grab that loop up and do our double crochet. And if you're having trouble, if you feel like you're yanking this loop up, you don't want to do that. So you want to keep loose tension here. And you can always hold down the stitch while you complete out your double crochet. Go pull through 2 and pull through 2. Now we're going to go into the very next stitch and pull up a loop, back loop only single crochet again. And now in the very next stitch, we're going to do that drop down double crochet again. So right here's our next stitch. We're sliding down. This is the loop we want to grab up. So we're going to go ahead and grab that up and finish out our double crochet just like normal. So now for the rest of the row, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do 5 back loop only single crochets, 1 drop down double crochet, 1 back loop only single crochet, and 1 drop down double crochet. And that's the end of your repeat. So you can continue on down your row, working exactly as we just did in all the rest of your stitches, and then you'll make sure to do a single crochet in your last stitch, and then we'll meet back up to move on to our next row. So there's 3 for me, 4, and 5. Now we drop down. Here's our next stitch. Drop down to this previous row. Grab up that double crochet. Finish it out. Or I'm sorry, that front loop, and do our double crochet. Drop down. Next stitch, single crochet, back loop only. And in the next stitch, we're going to drop down. Grab up that loop that's directly underneath. Grab and pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. That's how you work this entire row. So go ahead and pause here and meet back up with me when you're ready to move on to your next row. Make sure you do that single crochet in the last stitch. Traditional single crochet in the last stitch every single row. All right, you're meeting back up with me. You're ready to move on to your very next row. So we're going to go ahead and get underneath both loops at the very beginning of this row, and we're going to go ahead and add on our yarn there with a slip knot. We're going to grab and pull up that loop. Now we're going to grab both our working yarn and our tail together and do a chain 1. Now we're going to go back down into that same exact stitch, and we want to grab our yarn and pull up a loop. Grab and pull through all those little loops we have on our hook, doing a traditional single crochet right here at the beginning of the row. Now we're going to be doing a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. So we're going to grab our yarn. This is our very next stitch. We're going to slide down here to this row just below and grab up that loop. Make sure I'm getting the whole thing. Now we're going to be completing our double crochet just like normal. We're going to grab and pull up a loop. We're going to grab and pull through 2. Grab and pull through 2. And our tail's kind of peeking out, but that's what your work's looking like. So I got a single crochet here, drop down double crochet here. Now we're going to be doing 3 back loop only single crochets. So we're going to identify our very next stitch, and we're going to go into the back loop only, and we're going to complete our single crochet right there. There's the first one. We got to do 3 of these. Here's number 2. And here's number 3. Now we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook. This is our very next stitch. We're going to slide down. That little loop right there is what we're wanting to grab up. We're going to grab that up. We're going to grab our yarn and pull up a loop. Grab our yarn and pull through 2. Grab our yarn and pull through 2. Now we're going to do 3 back loop only single crochet. So into the very next stitch, we're going to do our back loop only single crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to do a drop down double crochet right here in the next stitch. So there's our next stitch. We just simply slide down. This is the loop we want to grab up directly underneath our stitch. Grab and pull through 2. Grab and pull through 2. Just doing our drop down double crochet there. Now we're going to be repeating this all the way down the rest of our row. 3 back loop only single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And in that 4th stitch, we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. So our 4th stitch, we're going to go down, grab up that loop, grab and pull through, and finish out that double crochet. And the repeat begins again. 3 back loop only single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then a drop down double crochet. Slide down, pick up our loop, grab and pull up a loop, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. So as you can see, this is what you're creating when you're doing the 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down double crochet. This is what you're going to end up having your work look like. So keep working in the exact same manner all the way down the rest of your row. Make sure you do a traditional single crochet in that very last stitch, going under both those loops, so that you finish out and have a nice clean edge on your work. So you can go ahead and pause here, and we'll meet back up when you're ready to move on to the next row. All right, so you're meeting back up with me. You are about to be switching back to your color A, which for me is the white. And this is what your last row ended up looking like. And if you look, we're completely even. We have our drop down double crochet in the 2nd stitch. And when we ended our row, we ended up with a drop down double crochet in the stitch right before the end. So we're going to go ahead and get a slip knot ready so that we can move on to our very next row. For me, it's going to be in this white color, my color A. So I'm going to come up here to the beginning of the row, slide my hook underneath that very first V, and make sure I'm getting under both of those loops. Slip on my slip knot and tighten that down. Now I'm going to draw up my loop. I'm going to grab my tail and working yarn and chain 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back down into that same exact stitch and grab my working yarn, pulling up a loop, and then grab and pull through both loops on my hook to finish out that single crochet. So now we're going to be doing 2 back loop only single crochets in the next 2 stitches. So this is my very next stitch. I'm going to go into that back loop only and grab my yarn and do a back loop only single crochet. There's 1. I've got to do 2 of these. There's 2. And now in this very next stitch, we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. So here's my next stitch, and when I slide my hook directly down, that is the loop that I want to grab up. So I'm going to grab my yarn and pull up a loop, keeping nice loose tension. We don't want to get too tight. And grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. Now I'm going to be able to do 3 back loop only single crochets in the next 3 stitches. So here's my very next stitch, back loop only single crochet, do a back loop only single crochet in the very next, and 1 more of those, total of 3 back loop only single crochets. And now this is my very next stitch right here. I'm going to slide down and I'm going to do my drop down double crochet now. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my yarn and pull up a loop, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. And that's what our work is starting to look like. Now I'm going to be able to go ahead and do 3 more back loop only single crochets in the next 3 stitches. There's 1, 2, and 3. And again, I just drop down. This is my 4th stitch. I'm going to be doing my drop down double crochet. So here's my next stitch. Slide down and grab up that loop on the row below. Grab and pull up a loop. Grab and pull through 2. Grab and pull through 2. And the repeat for the rest of this row is exactly the same. You're going to be doing 3 back loop only single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. I counted a little fast. Here's my 3rd one. And 1 drop down double crochet in that 4th stitch. So we're working in sets of 4 basically all the way down this row. So you're going to continue on down doing 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down double crochet, and then we'll be meeting back up to move on to your very next row. So you can go ahead and pause me here and keep working in the exact same way all the way down the rest of your row. And if you stop and take a look, your work is going to end up looking like this as you finish this out. So we'll be back to move on to the next row in just a moment. And we're meeting back up. I've already joined on my next color, which for me is my color B is what I'm calling it, and done my single crochet right there in the very first stitch of the row. So I'm going to be moving on into the next 3 stitches and doing a back loop only single crochet. So we're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. So there's number 2, and here is number 3. Now we're going to be dropping down and doing our drop down double crochet right here in the next stitch. So slide down, find that loop, grab up that loop, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now I'm going to do 1 back loop only single crochet in the very next stitch. And then in the very next stitch, I'm going to do my drop down double crochet. So here's my next. I'm going to go down and grab up this loop and go ahead and complete out my drop down double crochet. Now I'm going to do 5 back loop only single crochets in a row. So in the next 5 stitches, I'm going to work 5 back loop only single crochets, and this is the repeat for the rest of your row, or begins the repeat for the rest of the row. So we're going to do 5 back loop only single crochets. Here's number 4 for me, and number 5. And now I'm going to do 1 drop down double crochet, my next stitch. So here's the next stitch. Slide down and grab up that loop from the previous row. Go ahead and complete out our drop down double crochet. Now in the very next stitch, we're going to do a back loop only single crochet. And then in the very next stitch, we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet. So right here is the next stitch. We're just going to slide down. And there's the loop we want to grab up. Grab that and pull through, or pull up a loop, and then grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. And that is the end of the repeat for this row. You're going to continue on down doing 5 back loop only single crochets, 1 drop down double crochet, 1 back loop only single crochet, 1 drop down double crochet, and then you're done. You're going to keep repeating that exact same pattern all the way down the rest of your row, and then you'll be meeting back up with me to move on to the very next row. So I'm here at 3, 4, and 5 back loop only single crochets. Now I'm doing my drop down double crochet, and then I have to do a back loop only single crochet in the very next stitch, and then 1 drop down double crochet to end out that repeat. So we're going to go ahead and move on from here. You can keep working in the exact same way down the rest of your row, and we'll meet back up when you're finished. All right, so we're meeting back up. I've got my color A, my next color, joined on with a single crochet in the very first stitch of the row. And we're going to go ahead and jump on in the very next stitch, which is right here. We're going to be doing our first drop down double crochet. So here's my next stitch. I'm just going to slide down. And this is the loop I want to grab up. So I'm going to grab and pull up a loop, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. And just like I've shown you before, we can always pull that stitch back and make sure that we are not going to work into the stitch that it's covering, because we would be increasing our stitches there. So we want to do 3 back loop only single crochets in the next 3 stitches. So I've already done 1 there. We're going to come into the very next stitch and do our back loop only single crochet. And we're going to go into the very next stitch and do our back loop only single crochet. And then we're going to be doing our drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. So we're right here working in the middle of this mosaic pattern that we're creating. So we're going to go ahead and do our drop down double crochet there. And that is the repeat for this row. You're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And in that 4th stitch, we're going to drop down and do our double crochet. So same easy repeat as the previous rows that we've done. It's going to be the same way all the way down, and you'll be forming this right here, starting to really see our patterns taking shape. So go ahead and pause me here. Work on down the rest of your row in the exact same way, doing 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down double crochet, just like I'm showing right here. And there's half of that pattern done over here. So keep working just in the same way and come back and meet up with me when you're ready to move on to your very next row. All right, so I've joined on my new yarn all ready for this row with a single crochet here in the very first stitch. And now this row is super easy. We're going to be doing a back loop only single crochet here in the very next stitch. And we're immediately jumping into our repeat already. So it's a back loop only single crochet followed by a drop down double crochet in the next stitch. Just like so. And then a back loop only single crochet in the next stitch. and then a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. Oops. And then a back loop only single crochet in the very next stitch. All the way down the row, back loop only single crochet. Next stitch is drop down double crochet all the way down. So super easy on this one. So my next stitch is a back loop only single crochet, then a drop down double crochet. So I'm sure you guys can do this all by yourselves all the way down the row. That's what your work is going to start beginning to look like. So back loop only single crochet, then a drop down double crochet, and keep alternating between those two all the way down the entire row. And we will go ahead and meet back up when you're ready to move on to your very next row. So you can pause here and we'll meet back up in just a moment. I'm here at the end of this row and I just want to show you, you are not going to be able to do your drop down double crochet because we're at the very last stitch and we never want to have a drop down double crochet at the very last stitch of the row. So just like you have been on all these other rows, you are going to go into that stitch under both loops and do your traditional single crochet right there at the end of the row. And that's how you're going to finish it out. So if you have worked your entire row, this is what your work is looking like. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next row. All right, so we are meeting back up to start our very next row. I've already done my single crochet in the very first stitch, just like I showed you before. And we're jumping into our repeat right away on this row. So we're going to be wrapping our yarn and doing our drop down double crochet right here in the very next stitch. So here's our next stitch. We just slide down, grab up this loop at the top of that double crochet that we have from the previous row. And now we're going to grab our yarn and finish out our double crochet just like normal. Make sure you're not getting crazy on your tension. You don't want to draw that loop up. Now we're going to be doing 3 back loop only single crochets in the next 3 stitches. So we're going to go ahead and go into the very next stitch with our back loop only single crochet. We're going to do a total of 3. So there's our second one right here, back loop only single crochet, and third back loop only single crochet. That's the end of your repeat. Now you begin again doing your drop down double crochet, and you're going to be sliding down here and grabbing up this front loop right there on that double crochet, and we're going to finish out our double crochet drop down. And then we go ahead and do 3 back loop only single crochets. And that's the end of the repeat. Then you start again with your drop down double crochet. And you're going to notice this time you're going to be lining up and working the loop, that little front loop that we left on all of those drop down double crochets from the previous row. So you're just going to keep working in that exact same manner all the way down the rest of your row. And then we'll meet back up when you have finished that out. And don't forget that very last stitch is always going to be a single crochet. So you can go ahead and pause here, working in the same exact manner all the way down the row. And we'll meet back up when we're ready to move on. All right, so we are back and we're going to go ahead and move on to our very next row. But I do want to point out, if you like how this is looking, you could stop right here, and this in itself could be one of your patterns. You don't actually have to keep going. But if you want yours to end up looking like this right here, here in these centers, that's what we're about to keep going on up for. So I've already got my yarn joined on with the single crochet right here in the very first stitch, just like we've been doing. And now we're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that in the very next stitch, back loop only, and do that again, second time and a third. And now we're going to do our drop down double crochet right here in this 4th stitch. So we're going to drop down, grabbing up that loop from that previous double crochet, and we're going to go ahead and finish out our drop down double crochet. Now we are going to do a back loop only single crochet. And we're going to do another drop down double crochet right here in this very next stitch. So we're going to slide down, find that loop, and go ahead and pull it up and finish out our double crochet. Now we're going to go ahead and move on doing what is going to be our repeat for the rest of this row. So we're going to start out with 5 back loop only single crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to do our drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. We're going to do a back loop only single crochet in the very next stitch. And we're going to finish out our repeat with a back loop only double crochet right here in the very next stitch. And that's the end of the repeat for this row. So you're going to keep working in the exact same manner. You're going to do 5 back loop only single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. And to do a drop down double crochet right here in the very next stitch. A back loop only single crochet in the very next stitch, and a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. So that's your repeat, folks. So go ahead and pause here, work on down the rest of your row. Your work is going to end up looking like this, and we'll meet back up to move on to the next row. And we're back and ready to move on to our very next row, and this is what your work is looking like. So I've already got my new color joined on. It's going to be color A for me. I've got it joined on with a single crochet. And we're just going to go ahead and start working in the very next stitch with a back loop only double or single crochet. And we're going to do another back loop only single crochet. Now we're going to do a drop down double crochet right here in the very next stitch. So we're going to drop down, grab up that loop, and complete out our double crochet. Now our repeat is going to begin for this row. In the very next stitch, we're going to do a back loop only single crochet, and we're going to do that 2 more times, so a total of 3 back loop only single crochets, followed by a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. So all the way down the rest of your row, you're going to be doing 3 back loop only single crochets and 1 drop down double crochet. So you're working again in the sets of 4 stitches like we have been doing. 3 back loop only single crochets, 1 drop down double crochet. So you're going to keep working on down your row, and we'll meet back up when you're ready to move on to your next row. So you can go ahead and pause the video here, and we will finish this row up and come back for the next one. Only got a few more rows and then we'll be finished. 2 actually after we finish this one. So 2 more rows after this one, and this is what your work is going to end up looking like. So go ahead and pause and we'll come back in just a moment. And we are back, and this is what your work looks like after finishing up that row. Looking really good. We're going to go ahead and get our yarn joined on just like we have been. Going into that very first stitch in the row, doing a traditional single crochet, making sure we get under both of those loops. I know you guys have got this down pat by now, but I'm going to go ahead and just do mine on camera real quick so we can get started. Dropping that, and there we go. So now we're going to start out this row by immediately doing a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. So for me, the very next stitch is right here. And I'm going to go ahead and slide my hook down to find that loop I want to grab up. I'm going to grab up that loop and do my drop down double crochet. And now I'm going to start my repeat for this row. We are going to do 3 back loop only single crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to do 1 drop down double crochet. So here's our very next stitch. Slide down, grab up that loop, and do our double crochet. And that's the end of the repeat. So just like before, we're going to work in the same manner all the way down. You're going to do 3 back loop only single crochets, followed by 1 drop down double crochet. So you're going to keep working that way all the way down the rest of this row. And then we are going to come back one more time and do the last row together. And you'll finally be finished with this pattern. So keep working on down your row, doing 3 back loop only single crochets, 1 drop down double crochet. And we'll meet back up in just a moment to finish up and do our last row. All right, so here is what our work is looking like. We are about to start our very last row of this pattern. Keep in mind, you can use these patterns in any combination that you want. You can do solid rows in between to separate them, or make little squares in between to separate each one. You can do an entire project with this pattern all the way through and just continue on going up and up and up. So it's completely up to you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. At the beginning of this row, I've done my single crochet to join on my yarn, traditional single crochet, just like we've been doing. Now I'm going to do 3 back loop only single crochets. So I'm going to go right here into the very next stitch and do a back loop single crochet. There's 1. Here is number 2. And here is number 3. Now I'm going to do a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. So here's my next stitch. I'm just going to slide on down, grab up that loop, go ahead and finish out my drop down double crochet. Now in the very next stitch, I am going to do a back loop only single crochet. And in the very next stitch, I am going to do a drop down double crochet. So I'm just come right down there and grab up, finish out that double crochet. So now our repeat for the rest of the row is going to begin. We're going to be doing 5 back loop only single crochets in the next 5 stitches, 1 in each stitch. So there's 1. Here is number, make sure you're grabbing just that back loop. Number 2, number 3, 4, and 5. And now we're going to do a drop down double crochet right here in this very next stitch. Go ahead and grab up our loop. Do a drop down double crochet. Do a back loop only single crochet, just 1 of those. And then a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. And that is the end of the repeat for this row. So we're going to go ahead and do that one more time together. And you're going to be working this exact way all the way down the rest of your row. So we're going to go ahead and do 5 back loop only single crochets, 1 into each of the next 5 stitches. There's number 3. Here is number 4 and number 5. And now we're going to do a drop down double crochet in the very next stitch. We're going to do 1 back loop only single crochet and 1 drop down double crochet in this very next stitch. And that is the end of the repeat. So keep doing that all the way down the rest of your row, and you will finish this out. This pattern is now complete. And please make sure that you have given this video a thumbs up. Please share them anywhere that you can. If you found it helpful and useful, please do that. And also, please make sure to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. I always love to see that. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you won't miss any more of these videos that are coming out in this series on the Mosaic Crochet Along. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will be back in a few more days with another Mosaic Crochet pattern. And just so you can see what your finished pattern ends up looking like, here is mine ready to go. So that's all for now. Take care till next time. Bye for real now.